So, I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine you're sitting at your kitchen table.
Okay, setting the scene.
Yeah, and it's exactly 2 in the morning.
The best time for overthinking.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
The rest of the house is completely dark, and it's completely silent.
Right.
Maybe the only sound is, like, that low mechanical hum of the refrigerator.
Yeah, I know that hum.
But inside your head, it's absolutely deafening.
Because you've got a decision to make.
Exactly. You have this massive, looming decision staring you right in the face.
Like a career pivot.
Yeah, maybe a career pivot that feels entirely too risky. Like, you'd have to leave behind years of built-up equity in a really safe industry.
Or maybe a relationship.
Right, leaving a long-term relationship that, deep down you've just entirely outgrown.
But the logistics of untangling your life from theirs feel impossible.
That's totally impossible. Or maybe you're finally trying to start that creative project.
That business you've been talking about.
Yeah, that entirely new chapter you've been quietly dreaming about for, like, a decade.
So you're just sitting there in the dark.
Sitting in the dark. And you've done the work, You've made the exhaustive pro and con lists.
Right. You've read all the behavioral psychology articles.
All the self-improvement advice. And you're sitting at that table aggressively trying to force a positive, rational mindset.
And honestly, it is a profoundly, uniquely isolating place to be.
It really is.
Because, on paper, you're doing all the conventionally right thing.
You're applying logic.
Exactly. You're assessing risk. You're actively trying to map out a better future. But despite all of that intense cognitive effort, the needle just refuses to move.
It's paralyzed. Despite all of this logical, hyper-rational effort, you feel completely paralyzed.
Yeah.
There's this heavy, almost physical fog of exhaustion and burnout that has just settled over your shoulders.
You feel entirely disconnected from your own instincts.
Right. Instead of finding that sudden moment of clarity that we're all, promised,
Yeah.
you're just battling this constant, quiet whisper.
In the back of your mind.
Yeah, this insidious whisper that tells you that you're simply not good enough.
Or that you aren't ready enough to take the leap.
Or that you're somehow uniquely broken by your past setbacks.
And you're terrified.
You're absolutely terrified of making the wrong move, so you just make no move at all.
Which is exactly why we're doing this exploration today.
Welcome to our analysis. Our core mission for this conversation is to guide you exactly out of that paralyzing 2 in the morning loop.
And to accomplish this, we're examining a really fascinating, entirely anonymous stack of personal development and behavioral philosophy texts.
Right, materials that range from modern neuropsychology to, like, the architecture of human intuition.
All the way to some highly introspective, almost poetic observations on grief and resilience.
We're going to figure out exactly how to bypass this mental gridlock.
How to physically and psychologically align the hidden parts of the mind.
And ultimately, how to transform that feeling of being broken into a profound, undeniable source of structural strength.
So what does this actually mean for you, sitting at the table staring at your notepad?
Well, it means we're going to figure out how to stop relying purely on brute force logic.
Right.
And instead, tune back into a highly sophisticated, largely forgotten inner compass. Basically, how do we get out of our own way?
We have to start by understanding exactly why those 2 a.m. pro and con lists are failing you in the first place.
Right. Why the logic isn't working.
The reason you can't outthink this paralysis is that you're trying to steer a massive oceanic cargo ship using a tiny plastic steering wheel.
Wait, like a toy steering wheel?
Exactly, a toy steering wheel that is completely disconnected from the actual rudder.
Oh, wow.
The conscious mind is spinning the wheel frantically, but the ship isn't turning.
Because it's disconnected.
Right. To actually change direction, we can't just spin the wheel harder. We have to look under the hood at the engine itself.
Which brings us to the first major realization from the source material, which is the staggering biological reality of the conscious versus the subconscious mind. Now, obviously, for an audience that follows psychology, the concept of the subconscious is not new.
Right. We all generally know we have underlying habits and hidden biases.
Exactly. But the materials we're examining today highlight a numerical and physiological disparity that is genuinely shocking when you really sit with it.
Is wild.
Because we spend virtually all of our time obsessing over our conscious thoughts, right?
Oh, yeah. The planning, the spreadsheets,
The forced positive affirmations.
the logical arguments we have with ourselves in the shower.
Yes. But neurobiology and the texts we're exploring point out that all of that conscious thought, the voice in your head that you actually identify as you, only accounts for roughly 5% of your total cognitive activity.
Just 5%.
5%, that's nothing.
It's tiny. The remaining 95% of your reactions, your moment-to-moment decisions, your baseline emotional state,
Your perceptions of reality.
yeah, and your deeply entrenched behavioral patterns, all of that is driven entirely by the subconscious mind.
Which, I mean, from an evolutionary perspective, that makes perfect sense.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The brain is an incredibly energy-hungry organ.
Right.
If it had to consciously process every single piece of sensory data, every muscle movement, every social cue.
It would just overheat and shut down.
Exactly. So it evolved to automate as much as possible, pushing massive amounts of processing down into that 95%.
And here's the most crucial disruptive argument made across these texts regarding that massive processing engine.
This is the big one.
We do not actually attract, create, or manifest what we consciously want.
Right.
We attract and create what we subconsciously believe we deserve.
And that distinction is the entire ballgame.
It really is.
You can sit at that kitchen table and consciously, desperately desire a promotion.
Or a healthy, loving partner.
Or a wildly successful creative lunch. You can want it with all of your 5% conscious mind.
But if that massive 95%, that automated, hyper-efficient engine is harboring deep-seated beliefs that you're unworthy.
Or that you're an imposter.
Right, or that success is inherently dangerous, the 95% will win every single time.
Because it operates faster.
Yeah.
It controls your nervous system.
And it dictates your micro-behaviors. The texts identify fear and doubt as the ultimate saboteurs here.
Yeah.
And what's terrifying is that they don't live in the conscious mind where you can just easily debate them.
No, they establish residence deep within that hidden 95%.
Which is wild. And often these deeply rooted beliefs were planted there in early childhood.
Long before your conscious, logical brain had the critical faculties to analyze them.
Right, before you could say, wait, that's not actually true.
Exactly. When you're a child, your brain is essentially in a highly programmable state.
A sponge.
Yeah. You absorb the anxieties, the fears, and the limitations of the adults around you.
And your brain encodes them as absolute survival facts.
So these doubts act like invisible, malicious malware running quietly in the background of your operating system.
That's a great way to put it. Malware.
And they subtly send a persistent message out to your environment. They dictate your posture, your tone of voice,
Your eye contact.
your willingness to take a risk, and your resilience when you face a minor rejection.
This invisible driver is just constantly broadcasting a signal to the world that you're unworthy or unready, even while your conscious mind is begging for an opportunity.
Which is the exact reason why you might sit down, highly motivated to imagine your ideal future, and certainly, mysteriously, you hold back.
Yes. You start heavily editing and filtering your own dreams before the ink even hits the paper.
You think, well, I can't ask for that much.
Or, that is completely unrealistic for someone with my background.
Or I should probably aim for something safer so I don't embarrass myself.
We're letting the 95% draft the blueprint.
Exactly.
But I actually want to pause and challenge this for a second.
Okay, go for it.
Because I think a lot of people sitting at that 2 a.m. table are going to raise this exact point.
What's the point?
What if the fear feels entirely justified by objective reality?
Right.
Like, what if you have tried before and failed spectacularly?
A very real scenario.
Yeah. If 95% of my brain is running on faulty, fear-based wiring that was formed by actual painful past experiences, how do I even stand a chance against it?
It's a fair question.
I picture the conscious mind as this tiny, exhausted rider sitting on the back of a massive, panicked, 6-ton elephant.
Oh, I love that analogy.
How on earth does the tiny rider convince the elephant to change course when the elephant has a very clear memory of being attacked the last time it went down this path?
That is a phenomenal analogy, and it really gets to the heart of behavioral change.
Right.
Because the fundamental mistake we make is believing we can wrestle the elephant into submission using just the 5% of conscious force.
Just wrestling a 6-ton animal.
Exactly. It's impossible. You cannot outmuscle your nervous system.
Yeah.
You cannot logic away a deeply encoded survival response.
So what's the solution?
The solution provided in our sources is that we must use the 5%, not to fight the 95%, but to slowly, deliberately, and consistently reprogram it.
Okay.
We have to train the elephant, gradually proving to it that the new path is actually safe.
And the materials offer some highly specific, scientifically grounded tools for achieving this, right?
They do.
Let's examine those tools. The first actionable step they suggest is a practice called limitless vision boarding.
Right.
Now, I know the term vision board can sound incredibly cliche.
Very early 2000s.
Yeah, like we're just cutting out magazine pictures of sports cars and mansions.
But the texts present this with a very specific psychological caveat.
What's the caveat?
The caveat is that you must completely remove the editing function of the fear-based mind.
Oh.
Often when people create a vision of their future, they let their past failures and their current anxieties edit the draft.
They negotiate with their own potential.
Exactly. The texts challenge you to sit down and ask yourself, if fear, doubt, money, and past failures were absolutely not an issue, if I had guaranteed immunity from failure, what would I actually want?
You have to force your conscious mind to give your subconscious permission to dream without constraints.
Right.
But why does that matter mechanically, though? Like, what is the actual value of imagining something you logically know is currently out of reach?
It engages a part of the brain called the reticular activating system, or the RAS.
The RAS.
Right. Your brain processes billions of bits of information every second, and the RAS acts as a filter, deciding what actually gets brought to your conscious attention.
Ah, so it's a gatekeeper.
Exactly. When you refuse to hold back in your visualization, when you vividly imagine this limitless reality, you're essentially giving your RAS a new set of instructions.
Wow.
You're forcing the subconscious to start visualizing a reality where you are worthy of those massive goals.
And the brain struggles to differentiate between a vividly imagined event and a real one, right? In terms of neural firing.
Spot on. By repeatedly visualizing the limitless outcome, you are slowly familiarizing the elephant with the new path.
Making it feel less alien.
And less dangerous.
That makes total sense. You're systematically lowering the threat response.
Exactly.
And that leads directly into the second tool, which is where we get into actual biological reprogramming, repetition, and audio affirmations.
Yes.
The texts detail a very specific practice of listening to empowering audio messages or mantras right as you are falling asleep.
This is key.
And as someone who is generally skeptical of just repeating positive phrases in the mirror, I found the reasoning behind the timing of this incredibly compelling.
The timing is everything.
Why is the moment of falling asleep the crucial window?
It all comes down to brainwave states and neuroplasticity.
Okay, break that down.
During your normal waking hours, when you're stressed at your kitchen table, your brain is operating in a beta brainwave state.
Beta state.
Yeah, this is a fast, active frequency where your critical conscious mind, that tiny doubting rider, is fully awake and on high alert. If you look in the mirror in a beta state and say, I am worthy of massive success, your critical mind immediately jumps in.
It says, no, you aren't. Remember what happened in 2019. Remember your bank balance.
Exactly. The rider blocks the message from reaching the elephant.
The conscious mind acts like a bouncer at a club, rejecting any new belief that doesn't match the old reality.
Precisely. The bouncer says no.
Mm-hmm.
But as you're falling asleep, your brain naturally transitions out of the active beta state and downshifts.
Into what?
Into the slower, more relaxed alpha and theta brainwave states.
Okay.
The theta state is essentially a hypnagogic window. In this state, the critical conscious mind, the bouncer, essentially goes to sleep first.
Oh, wow.
The barrier is lowered, leaving the gateway to the massive, highly programmable subconscious mind wide open.
So by listening to repetitive, empowering messages during this specific biological window, you bypass the defenses entirely.
Yep, you bypass the bouncer.
So the elephant is just passively absorbing the new directions without the exhausted rider fighting back and trying to filter everything through the lens of past trauma?
Exactly. The source material emphasizes that doing this repeatedly leverages neuroplasticity.
Which is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections.
Right. When neurons fire together, they wire together.
So by flooding the subconscious with new empowering data while the critical mind is offline, you actually form entirely new neural pathways.
Yes. Over time, those new pathways become thicker, faster, and more dominant than the old pathways of fear and unworthiness.
You're literally overwriting the old buggy code so that your 95% starts automatically driving you toward what you desire.
Rather than instinctively pulling you away from it.
Okay, so let's say we've started this biological and psychological work.
Right.
We're visualizing without the fear filter. We're using the theta brainwave window to rewrite the software of the elephant. We're cleaning up the engine.
We're making progress.
But that is a long-term process. How do we navigate the immediate day-to-day choices?
It's just short term.
Yeah, especially when we're sitting at that kitchen table staring down a massive crossroad that requires an answer tomorrow morning. We need an active navigation system.
And according to the texts, it turns out we all have an incredibly sophisticated one built right into our biology.
Yes, this moves us into the second major foundational concept from our materials, the exploration of the sixth sense, or our deep intuition.
And it is vital to note that the texts argue this is not a product of the intellect at all.
Right.
Intuition is described as a nonlinear, highly creative, and profoundly protective faculty that operates completely independently of our logical reasoning.
Which is an incredibly difficult concept for a lot of highly educated, analytical people to accept.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we live in a society that fundamentally worships logic, data, and measurable metrics.
We want a spreadsheet for everything.
We want a spreadsheet for our souls, basically. But the texts make a very sharp observation. The rational mind, while an incredibly useful tool for executing plans, is only ever partly informed.
Right. It relies strictly on past data, visible facts, and linear projections.
Logic is limited by what has already happened. The sixth sense, however, sees what logic cannot.
It acts as a highly sensitive early warning system.
So mechanically, how does that work?
Well, if we examine the mechanics of this, logic looks backward to predict the future. It says A happened, then B happened, therefore C will happen.
Right.
Intuition, however, looks at the unseen present. It's the result of your brain subconsciously pattern matching millions of micro data points.
Like body language, tonal shifts, environmental anomalies.
Exactly. Things your conscious 5% simply doesn't have the bandwidth to process.
So it senses hidden danger, or it alerts us when we're veering off our true path, long before the logical mind has gathered enough conscious data to understand why.
And the texts note a fascinating friction here. The intellect will almost always try to control, contain, or dismiss this intuitive voice.
Because the intellect hates what it cannot measure.
Exactly. This is why intuition sometimes feels crazy or irresponsible or entirely illogical at first glance.
It threatens our usual, predictable, safe logic.
Right. Your spreadsheet might say that a certain business partnership is highly lucrative and mathematically perfect.
But your intuition is just screaming at you to walk away.
Because the intellect demands proof, while the intuition demands trust.
Which brings up what I think is the most critical question in this entire discussion.
What's that?
How can you tell the difference between your intuition actually warning you about a legitimate threat and just plain run-of-the-mill anxiety or trauma acting up?
That is the million-dollar question.
I think of it like this. Logic is like driving down a dark, winding mountain road at night with your headlights on.
Okay.
You can only see 20 feet ahead of you. You're making decisions based entirely on what is immediately illuminated. Intuition is like having a GPS satellite view that sees a massive, washed-out bridge 5 miles down the road in the pitch black.
That's a great image.
But if you're an anxious person, if your nervous system is chronically dysregulated, how do you know the GPS isn't just malfunctioning and inventing washed-out bridges that aren't even there? How do we differentiate the signal from the static?
That is the essential challenge of the modern, overstimulated mind.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the texts in modern physiological psychology offer a very clear, distinct way to tell the two apart.
And it entirely comes down to how the message registers in your physical body.
Exactly. Anxiety, which is the sympathetic nervous system response, a fight, flight, or freeze state, feels frantic.
It feels restricting, loud, and incredibly chaotic.
It spirals into catastrophic what-if scenarios.
Yeah, your heart races, your breathing becomes shallow, and you feel a desperate, vibrating urgency to act immediately to escape the perceived threat.
It feels like the walls are closing in.
Yes. That panic.
But the inner voice, the true sixth sense, even when it's delivering a harsh warning or telling you to avoid something you deeply thought you wanted, registers entirely differently.
How so?
True intuition brings a strange, underlying sense of grounded clarity.
It doesn't spiral.
Right? It doesn't spiral. It drops in as a sudden, clear knowing. It's authoritative, but it's calm.
It often feels like it originates lower in the body, right? In the gut or the chest, rather than as a spinning wheel in the front of your head.
Exactly.
So anxiety makes you feel like you are vibrating out of your own skin, desperately searching for an exit.
While intuition, even if the message is objectively scary or inconvenient, makes you feel strangely rooted in a truth you can't unsee. Precisely.
Yeah.
It's the difference between panic and knowing.
Wow.
But the texts offer a stark warning.
What's the warning?
To actually hear that rooted, quiet voice, you have to quiet the noise of the conscious mind.
You cannot hear a whisper in a hurricane.
Exactly. The sources suggest that intuition arises most often in a mind that has been deliberately organized and prepared,
So we have to actively relax the intellect.
often through meditation or
Mhm.
deep solitary focus. We aren't meditating just to relax.
Mhm.
We're meditating to down-regulate the nervous system.
Giving the brain a chance to settle the chaotic beta wave static so the clear, intuitive signal can finally break through.
Right?
And when that signal does finally come through, when you get that clear, undeniable flash of knowing, the texts have a very specific, almost ceremonial rule for how you must handle it.
Yes, you must treat it like an honored guest.
The materials literally suggest that you should verbally or mentally say thank you to these intuitive flashes every single time they occur.
And that act of acknowledgement is incredibly crucial for long-term alignment.
Right.
By thanking the intuition, you are consciously validating the 95%. You're building internal trust in your own navigation systems.
You're telling your brain, I hear you, I value this information, keep sending it.
Furthermore, and this is perhaps the most profoundly liberating piece of advice from the material, you must never feel the need to defend, justify, or explain your intuition to others.
Especially to those who are fundamentally closed off to their own intuition.
Exactly.
That concept alone can relieve so much pressure for the person sitting at that kitchen table.
It's massive.
You do not require outside external authentication for an internal biological knowing.
Right.
You don't have to build a PowerPoint presentation of logic, complete with charts and graphs, to justify a gut feeling to your friends, your family, or your colleagues.
If you just know you have to leave a situation, I just know is a complete sentence.
Because your gut feeling isn't based on the limited conscious data that they can see.
No, it's a highly sophisticated, protective, guiding force that has processed millions of variables they are entirely blind to.
Trying to explain intuition with logic is like trying to explain a painting using only mathematics.
It's just the wrong language entirely.
Okay, so let's map out where we are in this journey.
Let's do it.
You are visualizing your future without the restrictive filters of fear. You are actively rewiring the massive elephant of your subconscious using neuroplasticity and the theta state.
Yes.
You are listening closely to your inner GPS. You're distinguishing it from anxiety. You're honoring it. You're saying thank you.
Doing the work.
You are doing all of the heavy, required internal work. But then suddenly, despite doing everything right, everything goes completely wrong.
The bottom falls out.
The bottom falls out. You hit a massive wall of burnout. You experience a profound grief, a terrifying illness, or a catastrophic professional setback.
Yeah.
The immediate logical question is, does this mean the intuition lied to me? Does it mean the subconscious reprogramming failed? Am I just permanently broken?
According to the profound philosophical framework of our resources, the answer is absolutely not.
Okay.
It does not mean the system failed. It means you have hit a required test.
And this is where the texts pivot away from simple behavioral mechanics and wade into some incredibly raw, emotionally demanding territory.
It gets deep here.
They reveal that any meaningful life path will present inevitable, intense tests of our fundamental self-worth.
Right.
These challenges, these deep, agonizing disappointments, they aren't signs of failure or proof that you are uniquely cursed.
No, they are viewed as necessary moments of expansion.
They are crucibles that test our capacity to hold light, to handle immense growth, and to survive the fire of transformation.
Which brings us to a beautiful exploration of a very specific philosophy.
Kintsugi.
Kintsugi, yes.
It's the centuries-old Japanese art of repairing broken pottery.
But instead of using clear, invisible glue to hide the damage and pretend the bowl was never dropped.
Right. The artisans use a lacquer mixed with pure powdered gold, silver, or platinum to fill the cracks.
And the philosophical underpinnings of this art form are profound.
Rather than throwing the shattered bowl away or viewing it as ruined, the breaks are deliberately illuminated.
The flaws, the fractures, and the history of the object's destruction become a priceless, beautiful part of its ongoing story. The bowl is considered more valuable and more beautiful precisely because it has been broken and repaired.
It is such a visually and emotionally striking concept because it runs completely counter to our modern instincts.
Oh, completely.
Typically, when we encounter severe burnout or deep grief or a humiliating failure, our immediate biological instinct is to run away.
We want to escape the negative, uncomfortable feelings.
We want to numb out with distractions, scrolling, or substances.
We view our resulting psychological cracks as these ugly, shameful flaws that permanently disqualify us from the life we were trying to build.
We sit at that 2 a.m. table and think, I am entirely damaged goods now. I can't possibly hold that massive dream I visualized because I'm too fragile.
But the texts argue the exact polar opposite.
What do they say?
Those cracks are not disqualifiers. They are the required architecture of your expansion.
They are the exact golden veins through which your deepest empathy, your true strength, and your unique light can pour out into the world.
The material insists that we must physically and emotionally pass through these kiln-like fires to fulfill our ultimate potential.
We're actively being shaped, stretched, and reformed into vessels capable of holding vastly more than we could before.
Because if you are never tested, if you never fracture, you never expand your internal capacity to hold the massive life you're asking for.
A small, unbroken vessel can only hold so much.
Exactly.
I hear that, and philosophically it is beautiful. But I have to bring up the immense, suffocating societal pressure we face to just bounce back.
Of the toxic productivity.
Right. We are deeply culturally conditioned to hide our broken pieces at all costs.
We are expected to take 2 days of bereavement leave for a life-shattering tragedy.
And then show up to the morning meeting on Wednesday, smiling and fully productive.
It's absurd.
It's like having a priceless, one-of-a-kind masterpiece of a painting, getting a tear in the canvas during a storm, and society simply tells you to throw the whole entire painting in the dumpster because it's no longer perfect.
Instead of taking the time and care to stitch it back together with golden thread.
Exactly. Practically speaking, when you are actually in the middle of that fire, when your nervous system is fried, when you're so exhausted you can barely stand, and your heart is actively physically aching, how do you actually survive the intense heat of that kiln without just completely giving up?
That is the raw reality of the pain, and the texts do not gloss over it with toxic positivity.
They don't just say, smile, it's fine.
No, they don't tell you to just smile through it. Instead, they offer a highly radical approach to self-compassion.
And interestingly, it does not start with the mind.
Right. When the mind is entirely overwhelmed by a trauma or a setback, you cannot outthink the pain.
You must soothe the physiology. The intervention starts entirely with the physical body.
Yes, the physical intervention.
And I was stunned by how beautifully simple yet biologically sound this advice is.
Incredible.
The material discusses the specific, deliberate act of placing your own hand over your own heart, making direct skin-to-skin contact, and just holding it there.
It sounds almost overly simple, perhaps even performative. But the underlying biological mechanism is incredibly profound.
How does it work?
Well, when you're in deep distress, your body is flooded with cortisol and adrenaline.
Your sympathetic nervous system is crapped in overdrive.
Right. By placing your hand over your heart, skin to skin, you stimulate specific nerve fibers called C-tactile afferents.
C-tactile afferents.
Yeah. Doing this physically signals the brain to release oxytocin.
And oxytocin is a powerful hormone and neurotransmitter that acts as a natural buffer against cortisol.
Exactly. It is the exact same hormone that provides the deep biological sense of comfort and safety you get from a long hug from a trusted loved one.
Or a mother holding a child.
Yes.
So when you cannot find that deep comfort externally, maybe because it's 2 a.m. and everyone is asleep, or maybe because no one in your life currently understands the depth of what you're going through, you can literally administer that biological comfort to yourself.
Precisely. You are utilizing the vagus nerve to manually downregulate your nervous system.
You are sending a clear physiological signal to your brain that says, we are in pain, but we are safe and we are held.
And working in tandem with that physical, biological comfort, there is a massive mental permission granted in the texts.
What's the permission?
During these intense periods of fire and fracture, you must adopt a philosophy of doing no more than is necessary.
I felt a physical sense of relief just reading that phrase.
Me too.
Because we live with this toxic, hyper-capitalist idea that rest is synonymous with laziness. If we aren't producing, we are failing.
But the material frames it so beautifully.
It says rest is not a kind of death or giving up. It is active recovery.
It is the mighty oak tree deliberately drawing its sap down into its roots, conserving all of its energy in the bitter, freezing winter so it can survive to see the spring.
We are explicitly advised to meet every single secret worry, every anxious thought, with an intense softness and a gentle, unrelenting patience.
We must treat ourselves exactly the way we would treat a beloved, cherished friend who is deeply hurting.
The analogy is perfect.
Right. If you saw your best friend struggling with a physically broken leg, you wouldn't stand over them and yell at them to run a marathon.
You wouldn't call them lazy for staying in bed.
You'd bring them water, protect their environment, and give them time to let the bone knit back together.
We have to learn to apply that exact same irrefutable logic to our own emotional, psychological, and energetic fractures.
Which transitions us perfectly into understanding the next major phase of our internal journey.
Because part of adopting this intense, radical self-compassion requires us to fundamentally change how we process our heaviest, darkest emotions.
Particularly, we have to re-examine how we handle grief.
And this relentless, modern self-help pressure to just let go and move on.
This is a massive, incredibly resonant theme across the texts. The deeply human experience of holding on versus letting go.
Because in so much of modern pop psychology and mainstream self-improvement, we're constantly taught that complete non-attachment is the ultimate enlightened ideal.
We are fed this narrative that we must quickly let go of our past selves, process our pain with maximum efficiency, drop our grief, clear our physical space, and aggressively move forward.
Toward the next goal. But the source material we are examining aggressively, almost violently, pushes back against this forced, artificial timeline.
It argues that trying to fast-track your healing or trying to surgically remove your grief before it has finished its work is actually a profound form of self-abandonment.
It is a betrayal of your own emotional reality.
Exactly. Grief, whether it's mourning a lost loved one, a failed business, a shattered identity, or a future you thought you were going to have, is described in the text as a necessary, massive passing weather system.
It is a storm.
And you basically have a choice.
Okay, what's the choice?
You can try to block it, put up a concrete wall of denial, intellectualize it, and inevitably let that unprocessed emotional energy rot and fester deep inside of your body.
Creating long-term physical and psychological issues.
Or you can choose to completely, terrifyingly surrender to it, letting the storm wash over you and do its required transformative work.
And surprisingly, the text suggests there is profound vital wisdom in the act of holding on.
Yes, the materials use this incredibly vivid botanical image of certain trees, specifically beech trees and some oaks.
They exhibit a trait where they hold on to their dead, brown leaves all through the bitter, violent winter winds.
They don't drop them when it gets cold like other trees do.
They hold them tightly, stubbornly for months until the warmth of the spring finally comes.
And the immense, undeniable biological force of the new green buds physically pushes the old dead leaves off the branches.
The lesson is that we must not rush our own internal seasons.
There is a time for holding on tightly to what was lost.
For sitting with the memory, for feeling the weight of the dead leaves. We have to hold on for exactly as long as we need to.
Yes.
But wait, I have to play devil's advocate here because this is a terrifying concept for a lot of people.
Let's hear it.
If we don't actively force ourselves to let go, if we just surrender to the sadness, don't we risk wallowing forever?
It's a common fear.
How do we actually know when it is spring? I worry deeply about the danger of inadvertently building a permanent furnished house inside our grief, rather than just letting it be a storm that passes over us.
Right.
If we just accept the mandate of I'm holding on, couldn't we theoretically stay stuck at that dark 2 a.m. kitchen table for the rest of our natural lives?
It is a completely valid fear, and it is the exact reason why so many people choose suppression.
Yeah.
But what the psychological texts explain is a paradox of human emotion.
A paradox.
Feeling the grief fully, without resistance, is the exact biological mechanism that allows the emotion to actually cycle through your nervous system and exit.
Oh.
Suppression is what causes the permanent stuckness.
When you suppress, intellectualize, or deny an emotion, you're essentially trapping it in the body.
You are building that permanent house of trauma you mentioned. When you fully allow it, without judgment, you are letting the storm move.
It feels like the rain will never stop while you're standing in the middle of it.
But a storm, by its very physical nature of movement, must eventually exhaust itself and pass.
So to help navigate this overwhelming storm without getting permanently lost in it, the materials offer a very simple yet profound guiding principle for survival.
And what is that?
You must go where it's warm.
I absolutely love that phrasing. It is a brilliant metric for nervous system regulation.
Going where it's warm means relentlessly, unapologetically seeking out the specific people, the physical environments, the books, and the daily practices that bring you a genuine, undeniable sense of warmth and physiological comfort.
It requires you to become hyper-aware of your body's subtle reactions.
Notice how your nervous system responds to the different people in your life right now.
When you interact with someone, do you feel a chill, A sudden restriction in your chest? A sense of heavy obligation? Or a subtle drain on your energy?
Or do you feel an expansive, soft warmth?
During times of brokenness and intense rebuilding, you must fiercely protect your environment.
You have to give yourself permission to go only where you feel that co-regulating warmth, rather than forcing yourself to be where you feel you should be out of guilt, duty, or old habits.
And eventually, if you surrender to the storm without fighting it,
If you patiently hold on to your leaves until the new buds form.
and if you stubbornly follow the warmth, you will begin to experience what the text beautifully referred to as the rebellion of joy.
The rebellion of joy. This marks the true organic turning of the season.
What is fascinating is that the transition out of heavy, suffocating grief isn't usually marked by a massive, sudden, cinematic revelation.
Where the clouds instantly part and everything is suddenly perfect.
Instead, it is marked by tiny, almost defiant, microscopic moments of joy that somehow manage to break through the heavy crust of the sorrow.
There is this highly specific, incredibly evocative scene detailed in the text that illustrates this dual capacity of the heart perfectly.
Yes, the pear trees.
The author is describing a period where they are walking alone after suffering a devastating, life-altering loss. It is the spring following an incredibly dark, isolated winter.
They describe walking down a pathway under a massive tunnel of blooming pear trees.
The weather is still slightly gloomy. There is rainwater dripping off the brim of their baseball cap.
They are physically exhausted and carrying this immense, heavy backpack of profound grief.
But as they walk under the canopy, they look up and watch these fat bees rolling around in the hidden golden pollen of the white blossoms.
They hear the hum of the bees, they smell the rain and the flowers.
And suddenly, despite the crushing weight of the grief they are holding, they allow a genuine smile to break across their face.
The beauty of the moment is so arresting that they actually turn around and walk back through the tunnel of trees a second time, just to experience the sensory wonder of it again.
It is a masterful grounding encapsulation of the text's ultimate message regarding human resilience.
That quiet moment under the trees proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that no feeling, no matter how heavy or dark, is entirely final.
The human heart, the nervous system, has this incredible, almost incomprehensible capacity to remain open to the stunning beauty of the present moment.
To experience profound wonder, awe, and genuine joy, even while it is simultaneously carrying deep, unresolved sorrow.
Joy does not require the absolute absence of grief in order to exist. It can, and often does, exist right alongside it, growing up through the cracks.
So bringing all of these intricate psychological and philosophical threads back together, let's return to you.
The listener, sitting in the dark at that kitchen table at 2 in the morning.
The journey out of that frozen, paralyzed state, the path forward, does not require you to force a fake, toxic smile.
It doesn't require you to ignore the objective facts of your complex situation.
And it certainly does not require you to pretend that your pain, your burnout, or your fear isn't completely real.
What it actually requires is a fundamental structural shift in how you view and treat your own mind and body.
It requires honoring your broken pieces, your golden Kintsugi cracks, not as signs of permanent failure, but as absolute undeniable evidence of your increasing capacity to grow and hold a larger life.
It requires intentionally quieting the noisy, panicked, logical intellect so you can actually hear the calm, steady, authoritative GPS of your inner compass guiding you through the dark.
And perhaps most importantly, it requires internalizing the realization that 95% of your mind, that massive, wildly powerful elephant that dictates your reality, is not your enemy.
It is simply waiting.
It is waiting for the conscious writer to stop criticizing it.
To stop filtering its dreams through the lens of past trauma and to clearly, consistently tell it that you are finally inherently worthy of the expansive life you want.
You're not just a passive passenger, helplessly reacting to a terrifying, unpredictable world.
You possess the biological and psychological tools to reprogram the engine itself. You are both the architect and the artist of your own extraordinary human potential.
As we conclude this session today, I want to leave you with one final lingering question to turn over in your thoughts long after the audio of this discussion ends.
What is the question?
Consider the specific cracks in your own life right now. Think about the places where you feel you have unequivocally failed or fallen hopelessly behind or completely fallen apart.
Right.
What if the exact thing you are most deeply ashamed of, the exact broken piece you are most afraid to look at inside yourself, is actually the precise, vital vein of gold you need to become entirely whole?